It's a thought police free zone. The Liberty Lineup Radio Show, where independent thought just can't be bought.
I'm an American. Red, white, and blue. And I'm a citizen of this world and of heaven. Some things were meant to be together. I believe in faith and freedom. Got a country to...
And we are on. This is Ben McClintock, and this is the Thursday segment of Liberty Lineup, The Naked Truth.
We gotta stay strong, 'cause everything's on the line. We gotta rise up, we gotta stay strong, to save our way of life. I believe in faith and freedom, yeah.
Again, Hello, this is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore with DefendingUtah.org on the Thursday segment of the Liberty Lineup, the Naked Truth segment. Today we're going to be talking about the events going on at the state capitol today to destroy the Constitution of the United States. And we'd like to thank our show sponsor, EOS Mobile, the only cell phone service that supports conservative candidates and causes. Go to EOSCELL.com for more information and mention the Liberty Lineup Radio Show. Did you know that you can listen to this show from anywhere online through k-talk.com? You can access our calendar and join our chat room. You can also like our Facebook page at K-Talk Utah and post photos at Instagram and tweet our handle at KTKK, and best of all, download the K-Talk app through iTunes or Google Play. Last month alone, K-Talk was heard in 82 countries. Help us spread liberty around the globe.
We've also got the domain libertylineup.com.
Yep, check that out. And we were mentioning that as we were getting into the show about what's going on at the state capitol today.
There's a bunch of crazies at the state capitol today. I don't think it's even a legislature's meeting. Why are they even there?
It's called
a private organization or something?
It's a private organization, but they give themselves a legal sounding name. They're called the Assembly of State Legislators.
Oh, but kind of like the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor has reserves.
Kind of like Federal Express, you know.
I guess they are state legislators, but they're currently not acting.
No, they're
under the direction of the state.
So we've got at the state capitol, there's this meeting of this private organization that you have to be a member of to be able to attend this meeting. You've got to pay them the $100. So it's the pay to play to go to this meeting. And what they're discussing is the rules, supposedly writing rules for a constitutional convention, an Article 5 convention.
These guys think they are the new founding fathers.
But nobody appointed them to go. They said, oh, here's $100. I get to go write these rules. And Article 5 doesn't give them the authority to do so. And so either they're just playing a house, they're just pretending to do something, and they paid $100 and they're meeting in the state capitol, these legislators from across the country, and they're feeling important, and they're not doing anything, or they're meeting illegally.
They certainly feel like they've got the authority there. As I was watching their live broadcast that they've got going on, right? They kept saying, let's restate Article 5 in our preamble to make sure that we know, to make sure that people know we have authority.
Right. And which reminds me of this scene from a movie hopefully you'll recognize. Is this legal?
My lord, is that legal?
I will make it legal.
So I think Niederhauser and Ken Ivory are...
they will make it
legal.
They
will make it legal, right?
Yeah.
And some of the things that they've been talking about, I was at the event and or at the meeting they had yesterday, and taking some time out today to come and report on it. They're having it again today. Started this morning, and it'll be going on until 5 o'clock tonight, and then again tomorrow from 8 until 5. And so if you want to go down to the Capitol and watch these jokers pretending to think that, I don't know why they think that they have the authority to do this. They think they pay $100 to a private group they can meet together to write the rules to change the Constitution.
So at some point in the future, so you see, one of the main arguments against the Article 5 convention right now has been the precedent and the possibility of a runaway convention, right? So now that this private group has kind of gotten together, and they're gonna be able to say, oh, we did meet and we set up some rules, and now we have these rules, and it's like, well, okay, so they're just going to try to make everyone believe that they have the authority to make rules for a convention, and just accept the rules we came up with at this meeting, right? There are rules, see, right?
And what's interesting is like these guys, they're claiming to represent their states. They've got people from a bunch of different states across the country, and they're claiming to represent their own state. But we've talked to other legislators in Utah, and they've my mic is I guess a little low, but so I've talked to other legislators in Utah, and they don't even know about this meeting that's going on. So it wasn't like there was a vote in the legislature, and they said, you know what, okay, we're going to send Ken Ivory, Wayne Niederhauser, and a couple other guys to this meeting to represent the state of Utah. We're just going to do it.
You know, and it's kind of funny then. So there's only 20-some states technically that are even represented, not all of them. Or is there more than 20? I don't know.
Right now, yeah, it's not even it's not even half.
Right, and they're even talking about how certain states aren't there and how are we going to deal with their interests later and that kind of thing. It's kind of interesting that they're making up all these rules without even everyone there. And they, in fact, they're arguing back and forth a lot over, hey, we don't have any rules, you know, and so
let's play that clip. You want to do that right now?
That wasn't the rules clip.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
that wasn't the rules clip. But right, so the clip we're talking about is where one representative stood up and tried to just wholesale overturn the entire proposed rule. He gets up in the beginning of the meeting and he's like, you know, I sent you an email last night that said, hey, let's use these rules instead of your rules. And Niederhauser, acting as the chair of this group, was like, well, we've been working on this for 2 years, so no. And he said, well, I challenge your rule, right? And I think it's kind of indicative of the chaos we may keep seeing, right, as these conflicting...
These guys aren't even legitimately there, and they're still arguing. Can you imagine what it would be like with all 50 states there? I mean, it's just going to be insane. And they don't even have the same interest that the Founding Fathers had. You've got people saying, you know, the interests are, how much can the government give you, where the Founding Fathers were, how can we protect your liberty?
Yeah, the Founding Fathers at least had a common interest of preserving liberty. They had different ideas on how to preserve liberty in the best way, and that's why they argued just as much as these guys are arguing. But these guys are arguing over Democrat versus Republican type issues, and you even had one representative stand up and say, well, we need at least one female on the, you know, acting as the co-president of this assembly, right? And so it's a different game. And
not just about, like, we need to have a female, you know, getting into all these different, making sure that every different minority is represented in the leadership of this committee, and as opposed to sticking to principles and not mattering who you are, just what's the principles that we're going to go after.
Yeah, let's play the coup clip. So this is Wayne Niederhauser's authority being challenged, and they're trying to overturn all the rules in just a wholesale move.
All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with preamble. There were at least 3 people that wanted to have some discussion on the preamble. I'm going to recognize Representative Staltzer from South Dakota. You're in, looks like 1, 2 mics over. Right.
Okay, thank you. I pre-presented an amendment to the committee last night in writing, electronically through the email process. And I would like to move that amendment at this time.
So we're working on, it's an amendment to the preamble?
It's an amendment to the entire working draft.
So are you talking like a substitute?
It would basically be a set of substitute draft, correct.
Okay, so we're not going to recognize that because we want to take the work that we've done for the last last couple of years and start working on that today and come to an agreement on that instead of try to start from ground one, because there's been a lot of effort put here. So that motion would be out of order.
I would
at
like
this
to
point.
challenge the ruling of the chair and take the motion to the floor.
There is no procedure for that.
Okay, so
I find that really amusing. I don't know about you, but it's this sort of, I don't like your rules, take my rules, right? And he's like, no, sorry, you're out of order. He's like, well, I challenge you. He's like, nope, you can't. There's no procedure for that.
I will make it legal. So we've got, we want to get into a few things, but we want to take a caller real quick on this topic. Caller, what's your name and what's the topic?
Credit. Our clients are enjoying business.
That was not what we wanted to get. So, okay. So it's important that we understand what's going on. So we've got the legislators gathered together to write the rules for a constitutional convention. And not every state is represented. Not even half of the states are represented here. And to be represented at this meeting deciding the rules, you had to pay a private organization $100. You got to pay to play to be a part of this. And they're setting up these rules, and they're trying to come in. They're saying, okay, we want to replace the rules. And then the president of the Senate or this organization is saying, no, you can't do that. And he wants to challenge it, and it's just not going to happen.
So do we want to take some thoughts from our constitutional scholar?
So we want to, let's get into, because he wanted to give some overview before we got into. We got Scott Bradley on the line to be talking to us about this. And but we kind of want to give him some updates of what's really happened yesterday. And I wanted to bring up some of the things that they talked about, which was the first one talking about God.
Right. And that's where we were talking about the Founding Fathers' common theme was they knew that the laws they were creating and the system they were creating had to be based on natural law and these principles of inalienable rights. And they all agreed that there was a common theme among all religions that there was a creator and that we're responsible to that creator in the afterlife. And when they spoke about one nation under God and that this is where our rights came from, they knew it could be commonly applied to anyone who recognized that. And so now, so we have an argument going on in this convention over now, do we need God anymore? We don't need God, as if it's about religion, right? This isn't even the Founding Fathers weren't arguing about religion. Let's specifically put one denomination of someone's religion in here, right? Which is like some people were taking offense to at the convention of, oh no, where people have a new spirituality now. We'll have a clip of that here in a moment.
Well, we want to get to that, so we want to let you know. So coming back from the break, we've actually got our first break coming up, and that's what we're going to be talking about, letting you know what they're talking about there at the so-called Assembly. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore. After the break, we'll be back. If you'd like to join the conversation, call us at 801-254-5855. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore of DefendingUtah.org. We are back on K-Talk Radio, AM 630, k-talk.com. And this is the Liberty Lineup, the Naked Truth segment, sponsored by EOS Mobile, the cell phone service for conservatives. And when we were going back from the break, we were talking about the proceedings going on at the Capitol, the private organization that's pretending to be a group of state legislators where you've got to pay $100 to join and discuss the rules of this constitutional convention and that they're planning to foist upon us. And before we went to the break, we were talking about how they wanted to bring up God into this. We've got a caller that wants to talk about this. Caller, what's your name and what do you want to talk about?
I just want to comment about your comment. You said that the Federal Reserve is not federal. next thing you'll be telling me is Federal Express is not federal. Come on, guys.
I know, heaven forbid.
You're dashing my illusion of government. But yeah, I would like to. I guess I would have to disagree with you. I would like to see a constitutional convention, and here are some of the amendments I would like to see added to the Constitution. I would like to add an amendment that gives only Congress legislative power. I would like to require the president to faithfully execute all of the laws that Congress passes. I would like to add I'd like to add one that gives us freedom of religion so that we cannot be fined if we choose not to serve people a cake.
This sounds familiar.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Hey. Wow.
So you mean that the Constitution's not being followed right now?
Yeah, obviously I'm being facetious.
Right.
I guess the point I'm making is, if it's not being followed now, what makes you think that they're going to follow it after they add these amendments?
Yeah. I'm going to ignore this document, but oh my goodness, you added some more words? Oh, I've got to obey it now.
Yeah, they'll just have to put that on their list of things not to do.
Exactly. Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Keep up the good work.
Thanks. So let's play that clip real quick about how they wanted to bring in God and how that was a big controversial issue.
I spent some time going over the preambles of all the different states when they were putting their constitutions together. And
this is the representative from Arizona.
The vast majority of those, except for 2, and except for 3 others who didn't have a preamble, listed in their preambles reference of their gratitude towards Almighty God, or the Supreme Being, or some kind of acknowledgement. I would like to propose that we make simple 4-word addition. We, the delegate members of this convention, grateful to Almighty God, were selected from, and continue on with the set preamble that you have.
So that seems like a pretty basic, simple, not very controversial, but listen to the response.
I am thankful to God for being selected. However, this business is about 310 million people that we, in fact, intend to serve.
So he didn't want to do it because he represented 310 million people, and a lot of them don't believe in God. And here was another...
You know, those 310 million people, they still had a creator, whether
they believe it or not.
They don't have to go to church. You know, they don't have to be a part of anyone's religion, but I'm sure that they would like to have their rights recognized as inalienable.
Yeah. So here was another response why they shouldn't put God in this.
Deb Labner from St. Louis. As we represent the future, and as our future is changing, and as we have so many of our people, citizens of this nation, that are choosing to pursue alternative sources of spirituality, I would be against this amendment.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, against the amendment, because we've got future spirituality here.
In the future, people they believe in a God that doesn't give them inalienable rights.
Right.
Yeah, I guess.
So what's the verbal vote on this?
Okay, I'll go ahead and place the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, that was a lot of people who said no. Did you hear that?
Well, it sounded a lot different when you were actually there. I was there, and it was like it was 50-50. It sounded. It was just crazy.
I think it sounded 50-50 even there. And so it was, and they were really vociferous about it. Let's bring in... Play that again. Play it again real quick. Let's listen to the no's and the A's.
Okay, I'll go ahead and place the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I ruled that the...
That was a very, very strong bunch of no's.
And so it was so close that so you got Wayne Ederhauser then says, okay, the ayes have it, and then because it was like, are you kidding me? It didn't sound like it was unanimous, and so they had somebody call for a roll call vote because it was so plain that it was not overwhelmingly one way or the other. Let's bring in Scott. Scott, are you there still? Sorry, you've been holding for a while. This is Dr. Scott Bradley. He's an expert on the Constitution. And he's been talking about the dangers and the threats of a constitutional convention for a long time. Scott?
I'm here, and I've been here since the top of the hour, and I've been very interested in review. I've been tracking these guys for quite a while. I have not been there at their event. I'm so glad to hear an eyewitness account. You know, it kind of reminds me of You know, maybe some of your listeners know or remember the old 1948 movie, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. The Humphrey Bogart movie, and there's Americans. They're looking for gold, and Humphrey Bogart's guy, his name's Dobbs. Anyway, there some banditos come in to shake him down, and the banditos put on that they're federales, they're police officers, and Bogart's character says, "If you're the police, then where are your badges?" And one of the banditos says, "Badges? We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges." That's kind of a poor rendition of it. But that's what we have here, is a bunch of banditos that are there. They don't have any badges, and they don't have to show nobody no stinking badges. But they're there, and they're going to shake us down. And this thing is so appalling to me, so shocking, so chagrin. Listening to the exchanges we've had so far, it is so indicative of the muddle-minded nonsense that goes into this. Having read over their draft of their proposed rules for a convention, which they have no authority to call or to relegate to any, they can't give any kind of rules of engagement because the Congress will provide that. Based on Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18. In Article 5, Congress clearly has the authority to call the convention when the time comes, and Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18 clearly gives the Congress the authority to carry out anything associated with that call. So these people are blowing in the wind, but what we saw, or what we heard on your initial clip that you played, was a very real thing I've been talking about for years. They open the meeting, and somebody hops up and says, "I want to change the rules of engagement here." And so then you have, and it depends on how well organized this movement will be, you could throw this convention open to any and all changes, including a complete change out in the Constitution. And it would be presented in a very smooth. You can see a Jeb Bush, for example, getting up. And by the way, let's talk about the mix of who's going to be there, because they only will be the people that already got us in this mess. But anyway,
Exactly.
You see something like a Jeb Bush.
It seems pretty ridiculous. You're like, okay, the government has put us in this position. Let's turn it over to the government to fix it, right?
These people, this facade of players that have put us in this mess to begin with, because who will be there? Not a single solitary founding father. Only those that are currently in the political arena will be there. Now, that would probably be anywhere upwards of 5,000 to 8,000 potentials. But if you can imagine, their draft of their proposed rules says they're going to have a co-chair. Okay, well, that's cool. They got to be one Democrat and one Republican.
They argued about that as well. By the way, we don't have a clip of it yet, but they argued about that. So go ahead.
They wanted to make sure that it was every minority was represented in the leadership and all that.
We're idiots. The idea is we're trying to get the right color and the right gender and the right party. All of those things are problems we've got today. It's the issue is not anywhere close to what we got as the founding fathers thought, but it reminds me so much. If you go back and you look at the makeup of the people that formed the United Nations Charter, they had a co-chair. They had one supposedly from the American side, one from the Russian side. Oh, by the way, they're both communists. We had a Russian communist and Alger Hiss, a communist. And so you look at, okay, we're going to have one Democrat and one Republican in the chair. Okay, so let's say we have Orrin Hatch and Harry Reid, or Jerry Brown and Jeb Bush, or we have Nancy Pelosi and Boehner. Okay, come on, people. They're both the same flavor of, well, not the same flavor of poison, but the same poison. And then you go down to the co-chairs and all that kind of stuff. But honestly and truthfully, I can see someone getting up at the beginning of the convention and saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are met in a most momentous and historic moment. We are gathered here with an opportunity to address all the challenges that have faced this nation in the last 200-plus years. We would be remiss if we did not step forward and take an opportunity to face these challenges. I move that we suspend the rules and we move forward with an entire look at the United States Constitution. Here, call the question. I mean, you can see how this could be railroaded through without even, if they have a plan, they can do it. Now, even if they don't do it in this first convention, one of the things I'm concerned about, one of the many things that I'm concerned about this is the rules that they're proposing basically are going to be, if they get their way, something that's played over and over and over and over and over again every time somebody wants to have a convention, and they could have a sitting committee that says, "Oh, we're hanging in here, and we're going to see what the next one comes up, and we're going to do another proposed amendment."
Right.
It's just appalling to me. I mean, we are so foolish to see that most people haven't seen that these banditos are there with no badges, no authority, in complete violation of the Constitution, because it violates Article 1, Section 10 also about the state creating alliances that can't be done without the permission of Congress.
So since they don't have permission of Congress, they're either playing house, basically just playing pretend and wasting everybody's tax dollars and time, or they're acting illegally.
And I propose that they're acting illegally because here's the thing: you can overthrow governments by any numbers of ways. I mean, and it's the right of the people to alter or abolish their government. We read about that in the Declaration, and that was canonized, if you will, in Article 5 of the Constitution. There are only two ways to change our government here constitutionally. Either two-thirds of both houses propose amendments that are then sent out for three-quarters of the states to ratify, or two-thirds of all states apply to Congress, and then Congress calls the convention, which under the Constitution, Congress would then establish the rules of engagement, and these other guys would be extraneous. Those are the only two constitutional authorities to do it. You could have a coup, an armed rebellion, and that could overthrow a government, that could change or alter a government, but it's not constitutionally allowed. There's all sorts of ways to get rid of a government, and these guys are going on one of the unconstitutional ways.
Right.
And so I just, there's nothing that I have read or heard, and what appalls me, I mean, everything appalls me about this, but one of the things that appalls me is that Utah is at the center of this.
Right.
The Ken Ivory's and Wayne Niederheisers. I mean, it's like Utah is becoming the sodomy capital of the nation. Utah is becoming the group that's trying to overthrow the Constitution. I mean, Utah is just leading the charge. Oh, wait a minute. That was one of the books that was named about Orrin Hatch, leading the charge. We are so remiss in this, and let's
report to the people who from the Utah delegation is there, of the Utah legislature. You've got Ken Ivory, Wayne Niederhauser, Brian Green, Chris Caponega.
What Green guy did you say?
Brian Green, yeah, he's there.
The Democrat out of Carbon County?
No, he's Republican down from like Lehigh or American Fork.
Okay. I'm glad I was able to get you to clarify that, because I didn't think that Brian out of Carbon County, and I can't remember his last name, the Democrat from down there, he's absolutely opposed to CONCON. Anyway.
Well, there's another guy that I'll mention in a second. Greg Powell's there, Representative Lori Snow, Senator Jim DeBacchus, who always votes no on the CONCON, Joel Briscoe, and Merrill Nelson, and Stuart Adams. And so what it looks like they're doing is they've got their guys playing their part. And so even though they pretend to be against changing the Constitution, we all know that Jim DeBacchus would love to get rid of the Constitution. And he's there representing that side as well.
You know, it's interesting to me. I'm sorry to be on this Humphrey Bogart bench today. I mean, I got myself thinking about this. There's another Bogart classic called Casablanca. And in the end, I don't want to ruin the story for anybody, but a Nazi gets killed, and we all know who did it because we saw it happen on the screen. But the police officer says, round up the regular suspects. And what we've done here is we've taken out of the Utah legislature the regular suspects,
yep,
and we put them into this bucket here. We're going to ultimately round up the regular suspects, those political hacks that got us into this constitutional national disaster that we're currently in right now, and they're going to be the ones that get rounded up and put in to be able to change our divinely inspired Constitution. These people must think they're smarter than God. And most of them say, oh, I love the Constitution. what it boils down to when you listen, and I've listened for hours.
You got about 45 seconds.
Okay, their bottom line argument is they're violating the Constitution, so we've got to change it. And the idea is, wait a minute, that violates all logic, reason, and intelligence. If the Constitution is being violated, like your other caller said, what do we need? An amendment this time that says we really mean it? I mean, it's absurd.
We're really serious this time. And so just to kind of, thanks, Scott. Where can people go to learn more about the things that you've done and written about the Constitution and find out more about what you're doing?
I have a website. It's called freedomsrisingsun.com, and I've got about 4 or 5 addresses I've given against Constitution conventions on there. So people can go there and they can listen to me until they're sick of me, and they maybe already are. But the fact of the matter is,
thanks, Scott. We got to let you go, but appreciate you. So this is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore. We are, after the break on K-Talk, we'll be on the Liberty lineup. This is The Naked Truth. We'll be talking more about the things going on here, right here in Utah. You are back on K-Talk. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore of DefendingUtah.org. We're back on K-Talk Radio, AM 630, K-Talk.com, with the Liberty lineup, The Naked Truth segment, where we are about right and wrong, not right and left. Sponsored by EOS Mobile, the cell phone service for conservatives. And we were talking about, before the break, the stuff going on at the Capitol. And we want to bring it into some of the things that are really going on and linking all of these people together. It's interesting how the people that are involved in this meeting at the Capitol are all a part of the overall picture of getting rid of liberty in Utah. And we've written a lot of articles on that. And some of the things that are going on here in Utah, people wouldn't really even know about because they think in Utah that we are going to be focused on, that everybody here is going to be focused on our best interest. You know, they're our neighbor. They know them. They think that they would never do the things that we're talking about. It's deception that's needed, and that they're desperate to align with us. They're desperate to just use deception to get us to go along with their agenda.
Well, so they're doing that with Agenda 21, and they're doing that kind of with this convention, right?
Exactly. It's a misdiagnosis, and that's how you can trick people. Is you divert them with something that with the symptom, and you make them think that the symptom is the diagnosis, as if a wet road is the diagnosis for rain. You know, what's causing wetness. So with Agenda 21, and there's a lot, you got Wayne Niederhauser, who is the president of this thing going on, and the president of the Senate, of the Utah State Senate, as well as the chair of this Constitutional Convention Rules Committee going on at the state capitol. But he's also been involved with Ken Ivory in pushing Agenda 21 in the state. And just if you haven't heard of Agenda 21, it's the effective execution of Agenda 21 will require a profound reorientation, this is according to their document, of all human society. Unlike anything the world has ever experienced, a major shift in the priorities of both governments and individuals, and an unprecedented redeployment of human and financial resources. And the shift will demand that a concern for environmental consequences of every human action be integrated into individual and collective decision-making at every level. And that's from one of the Agenda 21 documents. And now they're moving forward to Agenda 2030. It's their agenda, the United Nations agenda for the 21st century, and then their agenda for the next 15 years of what they have planned. And a major talking point in their Agenda 21 program is sustainable development. And so when you think of that, well, what's sustainable? You don't want to be unsustainable. And so it's this vague word that they use that can mean anything. So we have to know what is their definition. And one of the major proponents of Agenda 21 was a guy named Maurice Strong out of Canada, who helped to chair the event in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. And as I mentioned before, one of the first times I ever heard of this was back in 2002. There was an article how the city of or news segment about how the city of Santa Cruz was implementing Agenda 21 by putting on water meters on privately owned water wells. So you've dug your own well, and they're coming in and putting a meter on. And because Santa Cruz officially signed on to Agenda 21, they had people going out to these private water wells and putting on meters, and it was causing a big hullabaloo. And so the news asked the representative that was putting these meters on, what was this all about? And they said that because Americans have embraced urban sprawl and gas-guzzling vehicles, somebody has to do something about it. Now, I don't know what that has to do with your water supply, but it was they were saying because we've done these things, they've got to control every aspect of our lives.
And that right there, if you just simplify it to that exact moment, why was it wrong for them to go put a meter on people's private water wells? That is a violation of someone's inalienable right to private property.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can get these issues down to these basic principles, right? And when everyone follows principles, then these crazy people can't do the things they're doing, right?
Right. And so it's important to know that this isn't some kind of crazy, wild-eyed conspiracy. It's on the official United Nations website. In fact, Utah is officially, the government of Utah is officially on record opposing Agenda 21. Back in 2013, they passed SJR 11, which put the state of Utah officially on record against Agenda 21. And what was interesting is they didn't even think it was a real deal until during committee hearing they had a representative from one of the councilmen from Salt Lake City come in and say opposing the resolution against Agenda 21 because he thought Agenda 21 was a great idea. And so they're like, oh, wow, okay, this is something that we need to talk about and it's real. So we want to make sure. And so that got them actually to oppose Agenda 21 and get them on record. And so when they talk about sustainable development, Marie Strong said that air conditioning and meat consumption are two things that are not sustainable. And so as they develop programs for sustainability, those are some of the things that they are working to slowly get rid of. They know they can't do it right overnight, and so that's why they got to use deception. They've got to do it step by step, like Karl Marx talked about in the Communist Manifesto, of doing things piecemeal because they know they can't do it right off the bat.
It's amazing that the Communist Manifesto is the guideline. It's like the guiding document in what all these
guys are doing.
And it's like, gee, it's like, well, are they all communists? it would almost seem so.
They're implementing that plan, and we know that the communism is kind of an arm of the greater conspiracy to destroy our freedom, but they're following the same game plan. And so what's going on? How is it being implemented in Utah? J. Gary Lawrence, who was the advisor to Bill Clinton's Council on Sustainable Development, bringing up deception, he said that participating in a UN-advocated planning process would very likely bring out many of the conspiracy-fixated groups and individuals in our society. This segment of our society who fear one world government and a UN invasion that the United States, through which our individual freedom would be stripped away, would actually work to defeat any elected official who joined the conspiracy by undertaking LA 21 so that we call our process something else, such as comprehensive planning, growth management, or smart growth. So if those are things that you've heard, these are the words that they've been told to use instead of Agenda 21. So comprehensive planning, growth management, smart growth, i.e. whatever it takes to get our agenda through. We're going to lie about it. And this is the exact plan that's going on here in Utah. If you go through, so in the Brookings Institute, they've got a branch out at the University of Las Vegas, and they wrote a report about regional planning and about implementing basically what was going on with Agenda 21, the same buzzwords. And they wrote a document about how to get other regions. And regionalism is something important. It's not about a state. It's not about a city. It's about regionalism, building a regional government to be able to get their agenda through.
Which we have several of these regional governments that have been created here in Utah.
Utah League of Cities and Towns and several
Mountainland
others.
Association of Governments, Wasatch Front Regional Council, something like that.
As well as the Interstate Compact on the Transfer of Public Lands.
And all this regional planning, this is Marxism. This is what it is, right? Central planning. So elite groups of individuals who think they're smarter than everybody else are making a plan for everybody else's lives. And so that's why they need regional planning. They outsource to these regional consultant groups as well. There's the software called REMI, I think is what it's called. And it's software that's used to help these groups do their regional planning. So they're even getting it from higher sources and other people who have been told these are your experts, and they give them this software that just tells them this is how you regionally plan everything. And it's like that's our Marxist future right there.
Yeah, it's following the exact plan. They call themselves progressive, and I say this over and over again, but their plans are the oldest plans in the playbook. And so the Brookings Institute, they came out with this document trying to encourage other places around the country, on other regions, to implement what's going on right here in Utah. They said that Utah has the example to follow under the organization called Envision Utah. The Brookings report says Utah has become an unlikely leader in regional planning. The organization that emerged as a key driver of regional planning in Utah in building a consensus around regional growth management holds lessons for other regions, and they're referring to Envision Utah. And it's held up as the example to follow, and it says Envision Utah, what they do to be able to get this through, it conducts a professional survey of local values before beginning any particular project. And that's an important thing. So they've got their project in mind beforehand, but before they start it, what they do is they conduct a survey of the people, and so that they can word their agenda according to the mindset and the beliefs and the values of that community. So it's not about actually doing what the community wants. It's about saying, okay, this is our plan, and then we need to understand what they want, and so we can word our plan to make them think we're giving them what they want.
Total deception.
Complete deception.
And you know what's interesting is the man who's the chair of this Constitutional Convention pre-committee that they're doing at the Capitol, he's a big advocate of regional
and he's a
planning.
part of Envision Utah.
Right, and this is the guy who's leading the new founding fathers, self-proclaimed founding fathers at the Utah Capitol right now.
So the new Constitution
He's a Marxist?
He's going to make sure he has a Marxist putting out Marxist agendas. And the Envision Utah, what they do is, again, in this Brookings report, explaining how other people can follow, other regions can follow Envision Utah's plan. The results are used, this is what they specifically say, the results are used to tailor the language of the public process.
Wow.
It's crazy. And so they Envision Utah, they say they start off with the goal in mind. So the Brookings Institute follows up with that, and they explain that in many cases it's a matter of rewording old ideas to match up with identified values. So again, this isn't progressivism. This is not progressive. This is old ideas. And the identified values of high density housing becomes housing choice. So they're changing the wording. So, okay, high-density housing and housing choice, do those sound like the same to you?
They sound not to me, really.
And it's not the same. They're completely the opposite, but they're saying we're going to change high-density housing to housing choice. Even though it's the same thing, they're going to reword it differently to trick you into the deception of what they're doing. When we get back from the break, we're going to follow along with more of what they're talking about. This special thanks to our show sponsor, EOS Mobile, the cell phone company that supports conservative causes. Go to EOSCELL.com for more information. And mention the Liberty Lineup Radio Show. This is Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore. We'll be back with the next hour of the Liberty Lineup. And this is The Naked Truth.
It's a Thought Police free zone. The Liberty Lineup Radio Show, where independent thought just can't be bought.
I'm an American. Red, white, and blue.
Welcome to the Thursday segment of Liberty Lineup with Ben McClintock and Enoch Moore defending Utah. This is the Naked Truth segment of Liberty Lineup, and where right and wrong is what's thought about, not right and left. Today, we've been talking about what's going on in Utah. Our show sponsor, EOS Mobile, the only cell phone service that supports conservative candidates and causes. Go to eoscell.com for more information and mention the Liberty Lineup Show. Okay, so we were talking about in the first segment of the show something that I wanted to bring up now, and I want to make sure my mic's levels are high enough. And we were talking about what's going on at the state capitol with the Constitutional Convention rules meeting going on, with a bunch of the Utah delegation being there to talk about things. We've got 21 states being represented.
And which meeting is unconstitutional and has no authority according to constitutional PhD Scott Bradley. And he explained, and you really don't need a PhD to understand this. You can read yourself that Congress makes the rules of a convention that the states apply for.
Right. Yeah, the states apply for it, and the Congress sets it up. And in fact,
not that we want that anyway. But
right. It's a misdiagnosis of the problem. We don't need an amendment to the Constitution because the Constitution is not even followed. If we were having issues right now, we were following the Constitution 100%, and we had some problems, then there might be something to discuss. But that's not what's going on. In fact, last year when Utah passed the BBA Constitutional Convention call, they actually talked about this being an illegal part of it as well. They said this was off limits. And so they're breaking their own rules. And so they're using deception again. So there's 21 states that are there. It's not even half of the states are represented here in writing the rules for the convention. And it's a private organization that set this up, that you've got to pay to play. You've got to pay $100 to be a part of this meeting, and the people that are there, the Utah delegation is the only ones I can speak to, but they were not even selected by the legislature to be there. In fact, you've got Margaret Dayton out of Orem saying she didn't even know what was going on, let alone be able to choose who was there. And the Utah reps that are there are Representative Ken Ivory, Representative Brian Green, Senator Wayne Niederhauser, Senator Chris Caponega, Representative Craig Powell, Representative Lori Snow, Senator Jim DeBacary, Representative Joel Briscoe, Representative Merrill Nelson, and Senator Stuart Adams. Those are the guys there from Utah that are there to destroy the Constitution, and they're really breaking all of the rules of everything that they've done. And so it's important that we understand what's going on with these guys, that they've got an agenda beyond just supposedly reining in the federal government, because you've got people there that are not dedicated towards. In fact, the people that are there from our own delegation have a voting record, like Ken Ivory, as a D and an F voting record from Libertas.
Hey, so let's pretend for a second that they succeed and they make a bunch of new amendments that actually do something better. Okay, let's pretend in this imaginary world it works like they're trying to sell it as. Now let's say in this imaginary future, the federal government starts ignoring those new rules because we're hoping that good rules will come out of it, right?
Ignoring the new rules as opposed to ignoring the old rules.
If they do that, what would the proper way be to get them to obey the new rules? That would be the 10th Amendment nullification.
Exactly. It's already there.
So if nullification is the solution we should be looking for, not this Article 5 mess that we're currently going into, and we're going to need it later after they pass new good amendments to enforce anyways. That's the proper balance of power by the states. So I'll believe maybe that they're being honest about their intentions when I see that they've tried nullification.
They've actually tried
first,
applying the Constitution.
And not actually tried to get around nullification just so that they can have an excuse to do the Article 5 as we've documented before.
One excuse that they use is that the Constitution isn't clear enough, that they need to clarify some things. And, well, the Founding Fathers were very specific. That's why you had the 10th Amendment to say if we didn't authorize you to do something, you can't do that. Here's Article 1, Section 8. Here's your delegated duties. And then the 10th Amendment says that if we didn't authorize you to do it, you can't do it. And so it's mind-boggling that they would even try and go there in the first place. And so what we have here is they're saying that we need more specific language. But the Founding Fathers knew that if you've got a moral people, that's the only thing our Constitution works under. Because if you've got a moral people, you don't need more specific language. And if you've got immoral people, no matter how specific the language, they're going to find a way around it. That's what lawyers do. That's their job.
Right. You're right. That's a good lawyer. That's what they would do. Right.
And so it's thinking that making it more strong, that they can make it just bulletproof, is ridiculous, because we've got people there in the legislature. I mean, just look at Utah, supposed to be the most conservative, one of the most conservative legislatures in the country, but you had them passing tax increases galore last year, and even making us put it on the ballot even. And so it's to think that they're going to be, so you've got these big old tax and spenders here in Utah as the conservative voice. You can just imagine with friends like these what kind of convention you're going to have. And they're already breaking their own rules. And they're having people go that weren't even designated by the state legislature to go to this thing. And they had to pay to go to this. If you didn't pay, you couldn't go and set the rules up. And so it's the antithesis of everything our country stands for. And we need to understand that this is what's going on all over the place. And so if we don't understand, why are we talking about this?
We're getting some live text messages from what's going on there right now, and they're just arguing over things that just
don't even matter.
Don't even matter, right? They are now getting bogged down in minority rights, right? Woman is standing and speaking as to why she has to work twice as hard to get representation in this assembly. So gender equality is now the issue, which we saw yesterday. They were arguing about a co-chair, and someone proposed we should guarantee that there's always one male, one female, and whatever. We're not going to argue against that. But if you keep on going down that road instead of focusing on principles, now you're going to want to make sure that we get one male, one female, and one representative from every race, and one representative from every sexual orientation, and you can just imagine that, how far that can go. Instead, when you're not focusing on principles, it just gets out of control. And that's the argument we would make is principle. We need to focus. The founders focused on principles, right? It was all about natural law and inalienable rights. And I haven't heard anybody, when I watched the live stream yesterday, talk. Well, there were a few nods to it, I guess, but no one really used it as a point of this is what we're here for, and this is what we need to focus on: natural rights and inalienable rights, and those are being violated, and we need to do this to be able to protect those. It's always been about just either superficial. Well, it's all been about superficial stuff, and stuff that actually aren't based on principles. And so we've got a caller that wants to talk about this. Caller, what's your name and what?
It's Elaine. What do you expect the world is becoming when you hear in your news that nobody's going to church and all the churches are empty? What does that leave you with?
I don't know. What do you think? I don't know if I've heard that.
Well, it was on the news, and everybody's talking about it. And my sister says, her and my sister and my sister-in-law go to church. There's only 2 people in the whole church every Sunday. The churches are emptied now. And it was on the news that people don't want to believe in religion anymore. Yeah, it was about a week ago I heard it on the news that the churches are empty now. People aren't even going to church anymore. They don't have time. They don't want to believe in anything anymore.
That's pretty crazy.
Appreciate that, caller.
Yeah, I mean, that's right, because it doesn't matter what religion it is, because religion teaches us love one another, not to steal, not to be liars.
Right. And it's the lack of going to those principles that is what we're seeing at the convention, is people aren't being a moral and religious people. And if we're not going to be that morally principle-based society, then no amount of new rules are going to hold the government down. Appreciate that call, caller, and please feel free to call back again.
Thinking about this new convention that they're having, these self-proclaimed founding fathers, right? I remember we don't have the audio clip. In the beginning, they said, we're not like the founding fathers, and we're not meeting in a private room that has, they kind of gave a lot of references to why we don't owe anything to the Founding Fathers, right? In fact, there was actually even that specific quote, we don't owe anything. So when people were arguing the Founding Fathers did it this way, some people would say, well, we live in a different world. And there was even one representative who stood up and said that we need to make sure this is acceptable to all the blue states. And I guess in a generic concept, they're saying all states have to agree, but they were really hinting at that we're going to be prepared to make a lot of compromises to make sure in our new landscape, right, in the new future America, everyone agrees.
Instead of focusing on principles of liberty, they're being focused on the principles of left and right.
Right, exactly, and that's the issue. There's a right and wrong, not a right and left, that we need to focus on. That's what the Founding Fathers focused on.
Exactly. Caller, what's your name and what do you want to talk about?
Yes, this is Chino, and I'm in the process of setting up a new cult, and it's based on critical thinking, and it's faith for critical thinkers. So look into it.
Okay, appreciate it.
That's why we need a call screener. We had some funny calls when we don't have a call screener.
But we need some critical thinking in the state legislature. That's for sure. That's what the lack of critical thinking of the people that are supporting this agenda is what's put us in this situation, I think.
The cult of critical thinking is lacking. Maybe this guy's onto something.
He might be. But this is something that it's widespread, and we want to make sure that we're not. I mean, why are we focusing on the Ain't Awfuls? We need to understand, in the art of war, Sun Tzu said that if you understand your enemy and you understand yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. And the problem we have here is that we're not understanding our enemy. We're thinking, oh, they've got the right party next to their name. Oh, I know him. He's a nice guy. He said something about the scriptures on his Facebook page once. And so... well,
that's why I vote for people, right?
And so we're not understanding the deeper issues. And so we need to have this. They're not afraid to have you talk about principles of limited government. Those things can be debated. But when you see and you can show facts about how people are working to destroy your liberty, that's something that is documentable.
Hey, there are laws against conspiring, aren't there?
There are laws. You can be charged with conspiracy.
That's crazy. Well, why do they make laws about conspiring men if
they don't exist? And so we need to understand that and look at what they do as opposed to what they say. And so that's something that we're...
They're all doing the Communist Manifesto game.
Yeah. They are.
That's what they're doing.
And it's something that we need to... This is, as we look at what's going on at the state capitol today, this is what it reminds me of.
Security and continuing stability. The Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire.
This has been McClintock and Enoch Moore. Check out our sponsor, EOS Mobile. This is the Liberty Lineup, the Naked Truth. We'll be right back after the break. This has been McClintock and Enoch Moore. Back on K-Talk Radio, AM 630, k-talk.com, with the Liberty Lineup. And this is the Naked Truth segment where we think about what between right and wrong, not right and left, sponsored by EOS Mobile, the cell phone service for conservatives, and EOS Mobile does not support Orrin Hatch. We are talking about the things that are, everything that we've been talking about, the dangers that are going on in our state, really all turn around and turn back to what President George Herbert Walker Bush said back in 1991.
Of its founders.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
So
Crazy.
This New World Order.
Wait, George Bush called it the New World Order?
He called it the New World Order.
On live national television?
And it wasn't something that he made up. This has been going on back to George Orwell wrote a book about the New World Order, kind of like a Brave New World. That's what they're talking about.
And so he's talking about a world government, and you know what? I bet the Constitution just isn't compatible with that world government.
I bet you're right.
I bet you that to make it compatible, they need a new Constitution.
What?
So how is he? He was so confident. He's like, when we're successful, and we will be. So he was so confident, maybe because he knows that he's got helpers, little helpers in all these little states everywhere that are going to help him overturn the Constitution, and him and all his buddies are just so sure of themselves that this is just going to happen.
And this is in the Office of the President. He published a book, The National Security Strategy of the United States, that was printed back in August of 1991. And it opened by declaring Bush's official policy of building that New World Order.
Official policy? Hold on a second. That's still the policy today.
It's still the policy.
It was
building
never
the New World
changed.
Order is the official policy of the United States.
And that was published by the White House in 1991. And if you'd like to see a photograph we took from our copy of that book, and you can order the book yourself too. People sell it online, but it was originally sold and distributed by the White House. But you can see that on our site, defendingutah.org. We have an article up. It's Jon Huntsman Jr. and the New World Order.
And Jon Huntsman Jr., he's connected in several different ways to this. He was a former member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and now he's with a lot of different things, but he was working with the Atlantic Council and with Brent Scrowcroft, who's also a big promoter of the New World Order.
The New World Order.
And the Bilderberg meeting is an annual meeting as a part of that as well. And they had an official website where they list their attendees, and Jon Huntsman Jr. attended during the year he ran for president in 2012.
Hey, isn't Jon Huntsman Jr. for an Article 5 convention?
He is, and in fact, when he was governor, he lobbied for that quite often.
That is so interesting. So Jon Huntsman Jr., who's been part of at least 4 or 5 New World Order connected organizations that we've documented there, is for an Article 5 convention. George Soros is for it too, by the way. And now that's interesting. So if these other people that are for an Article 5 convention, maybe some of them mean well, but you got to wonder how many of them are thinking along the same lines as Jon Huntsman Jr.
And even if they're not doing it knowingly, they're still they're getting the same agenda through. And in February of this year, February 16th of 2015, an article appeared in the Deseret News that confirmed Jon Huntsman's connection to the Atlantic Council. The article states that Huntsman is working with a number of groups, including the Atlantic Council. So what's the Atlantic Council? Why does that even matter? It says, and according to the article, it says that it's a nonpartisan foreign policy think tank. So that's really kind of a friendly, neutral-sounding description that is used a lot of the times to make people kind of get their guard down, and many of their global government membership clubs kind of promote that same idea. But most well-known of these is the nonpartisan think tank, is the Council on Foreign Relations, who kind of uses the same thing, and they have the same plans.
Hey, didn't a prophet of the LDS Church mention a book that described exactly how the Council on Foreign Relations was behind much of this movement?
Ezra Taft Benson told every member of the church to read the book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy, which lays all of this out in depth. And so if you're not familiar with that, we've got a link on the article about the CFR and what they're involved with. And Brent Scrowcroft, he was a part of the Bush Senior administration, and he's got links right here to Utah. And in fact, in 1992, he gave a commencement address at BYU where he told the students there to help the New World Order. Let's play that clip real quick.
We have perhaps an unparalleled opportunity to help to create a new world order.
Okay, we, meaning talking about the BYU students, have a great opportunity to work on the New World Order.
A new world order will appear.
Doesn't that sound like what George Herbert Walker
He's
Bush talked about?
He's so confident. It will appear. I know, because my buddies are
Making
in
it
your
so.
government, your local government.
The issue is not whether there will be a new world order, but whether the nature of that order will be shaped significantly by the productive involvement of the United States. We are striving now to take advantage of the current world situation to shape this new world order and thus finally to secure the peace. The dimensions of our involvement are primarily threefold: political, economic, and security, and suggest what the new world order can and should become.
Political, economic, and security.
Free trade.
Well, it's about free trade and the politics, which the free trade mixes both economics and politics together.
And let's clarify, when we say free trade, we're kind of talking
Orwellian.
down on it, but
because it's like slavery is freedom type of a thing.
It's not trade and it's not free.
Right.
So they make these international agreements where whoever's part of the insider clubs get the most benefit, and they call it a free trade agreement. So it sounds like something that we should all be supporting. But when you hear Washington, D.C. talk about a free trade agreement, it's not free and it's not trade.
Thousands of pages of regulation. This new TPP that just came out. I'm sorry, I said too many P's. TPP. The language was just released. It's like, what was it? 3,000 pages? I can't remember the exact number. It was something just monstrous.
I saw the article. I didn't go read it.
If it's free trade, do you need 3,000 pages to say, hey, you know what? We're allowed to trade together now? Doesn't seem.
I could do it in one sentence.
I just did.
Let's get the Assembly of State Legislatures to make
debate
it an amendment. They have the authority. They can do anything they want, right?
Right. They'll make it legal.
Yeah.
And so Brent Scowcroft talked about this several times. Here's another clip where he talks about building the New World Order.
Here is Brent Scowcroft, former vice chairman of Kissinger Associates and former national security advisor under both Ford and Bush Sr., as he discusses the New World Order.
Looking at the subtitle this morning, "Are we ready for the New World Order?" gives me something of the shudders. That phrase, New World Order, I'm afraid I'm partly responsible for resurrecting. To me, what that symbol...
Okay, he said he's partly responsible for resurrecting. Because a lot of times people will say that they just made it up, that it wasn't, that it's just something that they came up with. But the phrase New World Order has been around. Fidel Castro's called for the New World Order. The Chinese have called for it. The head of the English Prime Minister called for it. Nixon called for it. Carter called for it. This is something that's been going on for decades.
And he almost wells up in tears. That gives me something of the shudders. Oh, it's so beautiful, that phrase, the New World Order.
Was perhaps a fundamental change in the character of our response to national security issues.
So you've got Brent Scowcroft, who is a part of the Atlantic Council, working together with Jon Huntsman Jr.,
who even got him into BYU,
to speak and get the kids to be involved with and encourage them to be a part of building the New World Order.
Were you there? Did you graduate from BYU and see that? Give us a call.
Yeah, if you were there.
Tell
I thought you were asking me. I was like,
no. Now we're asking the listeners.
I was in junior high at the time.
801-254-5855. Were you an eyewitness to history when Brent Scowcroft, buddy of Jon Huntsman Jr. and who loves an Article 5 convention, called upon BYU students to create the New World Order and build it and be a productive part of it? Were you there? Let's hear your eyewitness account.
And it's one of those things that you don't think of people here in Utah being a part of. But we've got local officials, people that are influential in the community, that are working to build this satanic counterfeit to the one world government that'll arrive when Christ comes. They're trying to build a satanic version of that.
The counterfeit millennium?
The counterfeit millennium. And if you want to learn, if you want to see all the documents that we have on that, again, go to defendingutah.org and look at Jon Huntsman Jr. and the New World Order. And that one, we've talked about Agenda 21, we've talked about the CONCON, we've talked about, and all of these are linked together with the ultimate goal. These are all piecemeal. It's kind of like a chess game where they've got these pieces that they're working to put together, and they've got to have each piece in place to be able to do this. And so it's important that we know about them, and so that we can route them off beforehand. It's like an arsonist. You go around, and if we just wait for the fires to pop up, we're going to be fighting all day long. But if we know what their plans are, and we know that there's an arsonist starting the fires, then we can route them off at the pass. We can stop them before they do it.
And right now there's an arsonist setting an Article 5 fire.
Well, they're on their way, and so we need to make sure that we know about that and that we can go and stop it. We need to. Your legislators don't even. A lot of them didn't even know that this meeting was taking place, and so if you go to the legislative website and find out who your legislator is, tell them what's going on and tell them that it went on without their permission and against the law that they voted on last year with the BBA, the Balanced Budget Amendment, constitutional call for a CONCON, made what they're doing today illegal. Well, not only that, but you've got, as Scott Bradley said earlier in the show, you've got the Constitution itself that says that this would have to be approved by the U.S. Congress, and it's not being done legally.
And when it actually happens, even if they come up and say, we already made a bunch of rules for the convention, the Congress can say, you don't have any authority.
Yeah. You're like,
And, right. So are they just, like your question, are they just playing house?
Right.
Do they know that's going to happen? Or do they somehow think they're going to steamroll their rules? And I don't know, they're all bad situations, right?
Either way.
So I guess I'm not going to advocate for any of them, right? I'll advocate for nullification and implementing the Constitution as it's written, enforcing it first before we modify it. And, if we focused on the inalienable rights and the principles that were behind the Constitution, then all these little things they're doing as part of implementing this New World Order, they couldn't do. Every time someone tried to do something, they say, oh, no, that violates private property. Oh, no, that violates, whatever, someone's right to life in this way. Or if you focus on those principles, I think you'd find that they wouldn't be able to even do 99% of the things they're doing to build this world government.
And that's true to an extent, and that's why, like Karl Marx talked about in the Communist Manifesto, why they've got to do things in small measures, because that don't seem like that they'll have any impact. Because they trick us into giving up in those small areas. But if we know that there's an arsonist starting these fires, then we know that we don't give up in those small areas, and so we don't give up any ground. We don't, even if it seems like it's meaningless and will have no impact, we don't give up on those things. And so nullification being the solution, as opposed to adding more words to a document that's ignored.
Then we should only vote for legislators that will support nullification.
But isn't nullification one of those things that was killed with the war between the states?
One of those crazy, outdated things?
Racist things that's only there to support racism and slavery?
Well, actually, nullification helps slaves back runaway slaves.
The Underground Railroad was an act of nullification. And so has it been done away with? Has it not been tried since then?
I think it's happening constantly all the time. 10thamendmentcenter.com is a great place. They keep track of a lot of nullification resolutions happening in different states. And different states have different levels of support or non-support for it. Unfortunately, in Utah, we've had some nullification bills proposed that have not worked out because of behind-the-scenes antics by some of the same people behind this Article 5 push.
What's funny is it's usually the liberals that are saying that nullification can't work, even though they do it for their causes. They nullify, like, for example, sanctuary cities. That's a nullification of federal immigration law. So the liberals don't want us using it. They want to use it. They know it's real, and so they don't want us to use it, even though they're using it all the time. And it is used for preventing government.
The Real ID.
The Real ID. That was a national ID card. They wanted to make every driver's license in the country as a part of a national ID, a communist, Soviet Union, Nazi, your papers please type of situation, where if you want to go anywhere, you've got to show your government ID. And that was put down. 21 states said, nope, federal government, you are not authorized in the Constitution to do this.
And there was Montana, or was it Northern Idaho and the wolves situation?
That's going on all the time. This has been McClintock and Enoch Moore, and this is K-Talk Radio. Please check out our sponsor at EOS Mobile, and we'll be right back after the break. This has been McClintock and Enoch Moore with K-Talk Radio, AM 630, k-talk.com, with the Liberty lineup, the naked truth. Think right and wrong, not right and left. Segment sponsored by EOS Mobile, the cell phone service for conservatives. We've been talking about nullification as the proper remedy to the federal usurpation of authority over the states and over the people. One thing that Enoch just came across on Newswires I thought would be something that we wanted to bring to your attention, to nullify.
This is something that we'd want to nullify if it became a national law. And this H.R. 2232 nationally Vaccinate All Children Act of 2015. So this is a national version of the California law, SB 277, with mandatory vaccination legislation, which passed in California earlier this year. This is a great example of where a state could step in and say, that's a bunch of garbage. You don't have any right to mandate medical coverage for everyone in my state. And
not medical service.
Some kind of medical service, right? Yeah. Anything medical, right? Or pseudo-medical. And that's nullification, and it happens all the time.
But so with that was something that was done, and in fact, with a part of the Geneva Convention, prevented exactly with these two bills. Actually said that you could not. It was about informed consent was vital. You could not force somebody to take medical treatment against their will without informed consent. And this is another one of those bills that completely violates that principle. How could you force somebody to have medical treatment against their will? It's outrageous.
And getting back to principles, that violates natural law.
Right.
Right? There's someone's right to life,
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness,
right.
Property. And it's whether you agree you think vaccines are the best thing since sliced bread, or you think they're the devil incarnate, it's irrelevant because for somebody else. If you think they're awesome, then get them. But you can't force medicate somebody. That was something that the Nazis did and was done away with. At least was supposed to have been done away with the last century. And we were talking about nullification, and what are some other, we were talking about other examples and how it's the liberals that don't want us to do nullification because they know that it works and that it's the solution because they use it regularly. We talked about how they use it with sanctuary cities. They nullify federal immigration laws. And just neutral liberty lovers across the country, back in 2009, 21 states nullified the Real ID, this national ID card situation that they wanted to have. And the federal government, through all kinds of hissy fits, threatened them and said that your citizens wouldn't be able to go into airports, wouldn't be able to go into courthouses, and that was just completely fell flat. And we've got a caller that wants to talk about this. Caller, what's your name and what do you want to talk about?
Turn the phone up.
And we're going to turn the phone up. And caller, hello.
Hello. This is Chris again from Springville. You're used to me. So you've got the non-prosecution of people that violated the DOMA laws under Eric, the Secretary of the
in Kentucky.
General.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the Kentucky and Virginia resolve. Those are way back during the Alien and Sedition Acts, I think. They nullified those, and that established a firm precedent of nullification. We've got so many, and the way I see it, God's laws and constitutional laws, which are the same, trump man's laws any day of the week.
Every day of the week, yep.
I have no problem with that. So, yeah, it's just a matter of mustering up the courage. You know, we read in Doctrine and Covenants 121, I don't know if you're LDS, I assume you are, most of our audience is. You give a little power or authority to a man as he supposes, he will immediately begin to exercise unrighteous dominion. So how can we suppose that a group of men assembling in any capacity should be unfettered by constitutional law? And we come out with something that's good and doesn't serve the interests of the corporations that we know are backing them.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
Exactly.
So, I don't know.
Appreciate
You
it.
guys, it's hard to outdo you guys. You've got all your bases covered, but I did my best.
Hey, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
You
Call
might
back.
want to Google the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions because they
Absolutely.
established an early precedent
Yep.
of nullification.
Jefferson, when these things went to court, the court ruled against him, and you know what he said? He told the courts to enforce it, meaning tell them to stuff it because they knew they couldn't do anything about it.
Right.
So, appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. So maybe Google those and read them on air.
Our readers should do that, yeah. Thank you. Our listeners, thank you. We had a caller call in, and please call back. Another one. We missed that, but we'd like to hear from you and what your thoughts are on these issues. And so it's important that we remember that these are principles. The first act of nullification in our country was the Declaration of Independence. We were saying that
we nullified the British king.
And it's an eternal principle. It's a correct principle. When you see tyranny, Rosa Parks, she nullified personally institutionalized racism. Now, this is a principle where if I'm going to be a guy that says I don't want to serve somebody because of their color or whatever, that's my personal right. But the government has no right to do those things.
Right.
And so Rosa Parks used nullification to say, you know what, you have no authority over that. And so this is something that goes on all the time, and that nobody would say, well, Rosa Parks should be thrown in prison for nullifying that. And people shouldn't be saying that now. Caller. Lost him. Okay. Try again, caller. We'll get you. And it goes on over and over again. We've got states across the country that have nullified federal gun laws. That you've got Washington and Oregon and California and Colorado that have nullified marijuana laws, saying that the federal government has no authority over that. And this was something that people knew as recently as 100 years ago. Remember when you had they had the push to make alcohol illegal? They had what was the I'm having a blank on the word that was used. Prohibition.
Right.
Prohibition.
And everybody knew, no, you can't do that.
The federal government cannot prohibit nationally alcohol use, and so they had to pass an amendment to the Constitution.
And it's amazing that it was the cultural common knowledge of the people that made them not able to just do it. They had to actually amend the Constitution to do it because everybody knew there was no enumerated power for that.
They weren't authorized in the Article 1, Section 8, and the 10th Amendment said you couldn't do it. Caller, what's your name and what topic?
Hi, this is Hazel.
Hey, Hazel.
I'm calling about nullification.
Yes.
So I just have a super easy mom example because that's what's on my mind all the day is being a mom. And if the school is out there telling me you have to teach your kids these certain science standards that are new in Utah that'll soon be invading our children's minds, that's null and void to me. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you tell me that this is a law that my children have to be able to pass a certain test and agree a certain way on disagreeing with the Lord. I'm going to teach them what my conscience dictates, and so if they tell me that God doesn't exist, that's null. So if you carry that principle just to bigger areas, I don't see why it's so hard for people to figure out.
Exactly. It seems pretty basic. We do it all the time.
It's natural, and that's why the term natural law is used, right? These are self-evident, right? It is obvious to the common person that no, you can't do that. It doesn't make sense. And our Constitution is just supporting those principles of natural law that were already self-evident.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the call, Hazel. Call back anytime.
Thanks.
This is something that we all do. I mean, like, I'll give you an example. I'll admit to a crime over the airwaves, okay? Every year, my house is heated by a wood stove, and I don't pay attention to non-burn days to keep my family warm. I nullify county law or state law.
You're racist. That's your problem.
Clearly racist because I want to keep my family warm. Caller, what's your name and what do you want to talk about?
It's Elaine. Natural law is two men and a woman having a baby. That is natural law.
That is natural law.
Isn't it?
It is.
It is
Well,
natural
And
law.
I am a bigot, and I'm staying a bigot.
Thanks for calling.
No, I'm serious. You can call me Mrs. Bigot of Utah.
The Mrs. Bigot of Utah, because she believes that men and women having babies is natural law. If that's bigoted, I guess.
Yeah. That.
And so it's something that we all do all the time when we think of things that are just ridiculous. That when it happens on a personal level, a county level, a state level. Examples of nullification. You've got Sheriff Mack, who told the federal government to stick it with federal gun laws, and actually won in the Supreme Court. Now, just like Jefferson said, I don't think we should go to the federal court to depend on them to protect our rights from the federal government. It's kind of like circular logic, but we've got precedents for that type of a thing. You've got the Iron County Sheriff, who told the feds that if you're going to come in my county, you need to come to me first or I'm going to arrest you. If you're going to come to my county and try to get somebody, there was a guy there that, like they mentioned, like taxes. If you're going to come and prosecute somebody or arrest somebody in my county for tax evasion, you've got to come to me first. And the feds said, okay, we got to do it. And so that's an example of a county level nullification.
And, they generally will agree, because I would say it's self-evident to them. Even though the feds would love to just be the tyrannical police force over everybody, right, which is a whole other subject, right? That when a sheriff stands up and says that, they say, okay, they don't really fight it. Either they know the law or it's self-evident that, this guy has the jurisdiction and this is who we need to go talk to first. And they don't argue it.
There are states all across the country nullifying laws and counties nullifying laws all over the place. But unfortunately, we've got legislators in Utah that know that nullification works, and they don't want it because they need to force us into an Article 5 convention to change the Constitution and erase the liberties that we still have. And so they fight nullification, and we played the clip last week about...
Pull that up again.
We want to tell you about the different stories that people have had of legislators fighting them on nullification.
So why do they fight nullification is a question. And when we originally interviewed constitutional PhD Scott Bradley, he explained his behind-the-scenes eyewitness, and we have this clip. This is the reason why they fight nullification. Can you find the clip?
Yeah.
Worked. If nullification worked, all his arguments for a con went away.
So they're not allowing nullification. They have conspired to destroy nullification bills on multiple occasions because it would ruin their justification for this Article 5 scam that they're doing.
And they can't use logic and reason. They have to bully. Here's another experience from somebody that worked with them about nullification.
This is Bliss 2, Regional Field Director with the John Birch Society. I was calling to relay that information about the time I talked with Representative Ken Ivory. Representative Anderegg put in a substitution bill to substitute for a bill that was a nullification bill for the state of Utah to nullify the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Ken Ivory was there to testify in favor of the substitution bill that would have gutted the nullification and made it to just be a bill about Medicare. Mr. Ken Ivory approached me and he told me, he kind of poked his finger at me and says, you need to tell your leaders to quit talking about nullification.
So that's the key, is nullification, because nullification works. It's done all of the time. Special thanks to our show sponsor, EOS Mobile. Tomorrow is the Hollywood Y Guy. Go to EOSCELL.com. This is the Liberty Lineup Show. Join us every day, 10 to noon. This has been McClintock and Enoch Moore. We will be back next Thursday, 10 to noon. This is The Naked Truth. Find out more of our articles at defendingutah.org.